Well, what's going on today, guys? Let's get a review on my Microtech Stitch. I have owned this knife for about a year. I really like this knife, but it's hard to recommend, and I know that sounds funny, but stay tuned. Oh man, that's one of the reasons I love it so much. So it's the Microtech Stitch, designed by Borka Blade Works, produced by Microtech, obviously. It is a side opening automatic. It is a hard use cutting tool. Hard to recommend because there are other knives that do everything this knife does, utility wise, a lot better at a lot more value. Let's say that. This knife was $365 when I purchased it. Now I can't find one brand new under $400, so I don't know if the price went up or maybe they have different options. This is the version that this one is. Apocalyptic standard. And here's all the, I don't care about boxes and knives, but if you do, here you go. You get a little manual and some foam that comes in. And I think it had a bag or something on there. I don't care about that stuff, but some people do. So anyways, why is it so hard to recommend? Because for me, I really like to recommend knives that you get pretty good value. And sometimes, you know, custom knives, you don't quite get the value that you do on your budget knives. But I like practical knives. That's why I think a lot of people were kind of shocked that I do like this knife as much as I do. And I do carry this knife as much as I do. And then if you do love it so much, why don't you recommend it? Well, it's not that I don't recommend it. I just think that there are some criteria that you should meet before you purchase this knife. I think that you should have your EDC knives covered. I think you should already have something that you like and something that cuts well, maybe at a lower price point. Maybe that's a little more legal than a side opening automatic. You know, it's thick and heavy. I think you should have something maybe a little lighter. You know, this is not a novelty knife, but I don't think this is the one and only EDC knife that you should own. If you own those knives and you're happy with those other knives in your collection, yeah, it's a fun knife to spice up your collection. I really like the proportion. That's one of the reasons I was really drawn to it. Not only do I just love the design here, and I really do. It's so different than most knives today. I like this Warncliffe style straight blade here. I like the longer handle. I like the harpoon. I thought it would feel really good in my hand, and it does. It locks this front finger in with the choil here, and your finger just, your thumb rests right up there. Very comfortable knife. It is like contoured on the edges. I feel like saying CC every time I say that, concealed carry, but that's kind of a Strider term. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, instead of like a straight block, they round off the sides here. And again, you should get that with the price point that this is, with the 3D machining on this knife, with how precise it is. Yeah, I think all that stuff, you should really expect all that. You should expect a good pocket clip with no hot spots on it, and they delivered. I really like this Chris Reeves style clip here, where it has like that second bump in it. So this kind of slides over your pocket, then it locks in with that. I really like that. I love how hard this thing fires as an automatic. I do. I love the M390 blade steel. It holds an edge very well. I had to lay my edge back to make it cut a little better. And even at that, it still doesn't cut as well as it should, with some caveats. Has a very thick blade, so as far as thick as this blade is, it actually does cut pretty well. It's thicker than the SNG. You can see the differences here. I don't have any measurements. I don't take notes, so I don't know. You'd have to look it up. It's a very thick blade. Let's put it up against maybe something, a very, very different knife, but you can understand. If I love the Delica and I carry this one a lot, you can see why I may say that this doesn't cut as well as this. Full flat ground, look how thin the blade is, and this is thick. These knives are in two totally different categories. I would maybe put these more in line with each other, and this still cuts better than this. But you can see they're very different knives. So that's just one knock I have on it. I feel like as a hard use cutting tool, yeah, but I feel like this knife is more of a fun knife. Fun knife without being like, it's still a hard use cutting tool, but it's just, again, it's hard to recommend as your one and only EDC knife. When I first got into the knife hobby, I thought I would find that one knife that was my grail knife to carry and use. I didn't care how much it was. So immediately within jumping into the knife hobby, I jumped into Sebenzas and stuff within like 6 months to a year, something like that. It wasn't long before I found out that the Sebenza was supposed to be the knife with that all the others were measured against, you know. And then I found the SNG, and I got both like within a week, just trying to find out the very best knife. And I think that's kind of why I'm so drawn towards them to this day. But that's neither here nor there. But I know some people are watching this video thinking they're still trying to find out that one ultimate EDC. Again, I don't think that the Stitch is going to be that. Maybe it is, but I really don't think so. I can tell you why I like it. And that's, you know, pretty much, I hope that's why you're here, for my opinion. So if you haven't noticed on my channel, I kind of have this ongoing theme with the knife that I really like are this larger handle with a smaller blade. And on paper, that really doesn't make much sense. Why? You know, why is that a thing? And I don't entirely know for sure, but I know I like it in actual real life. I've went over that a bunch. I like all the leverage that you can put on the blade. You know, all of these knives here cut better than the Stitch. So that's what I'm saying. Maybe as something to spice up your collection, something a little bit different. And I think that's why I'm really drawn towards it. You can see it's the thickest knife on the table. I was going to say it's very overbuilt. And it is. But stay tuned, because after this video, I want to do a knife spelunking episode on this knife. If you don't know what that is, that's where we take the knife down, we dive down deep into the cave of the knife, and we go over every little detail of the knife, and I give pros and cons as I see it, you know. So stay tuned for that. I just wanted to compare this knife, show you some other knives in the same proportions as this knife, and then you can kind of see where I'm coming from. It doesn't cut as well as these knives. It's thicker. It's heavier. It's a side opening automatic. That comes with all of its own hesitations in recommending this knife. But if you're looking for a fun knife, something to spice up your collection, and you already own a couple other EDC knives, then I think this is an easier one to recommend if you like the profile. And then that's the weighing factor here. Now, personally, do I feel like it was a little more expensive than it should be? Kind of, but I understand USA made with this precise machining, it's not going to be cheap. So I feel that the $365, now $400 price point is probably where it should be. And I think they sell a bunch of them. They don't have a problem selling it. So I think they've priced it right. But for $400, can you get a titanium frame lock knife that cuts better? Absolutely. You know, again, that's why this one's a hard one to recommend. Unless you've already got all that part covered. Or unless you're happy with whatever you have for your EDC and you're just looking to spice something up, yeah, then this is an easier one to recommend. I don't know if I've went over it. It's just, look how wide this thing is. This is one of the big complaints on the Spyderco Manix, is how wide, and it's a real pocket hog. It takes up your whole pocket here. And you see this is actually wider in the pocket in both ways. It's wider in width this way, and way wider in width this way. But I really like carrying this knife on the weekends. If I'm looking for something fun, I've been carrying slip joints for most of the week, or I've been carrying something smaller, something more practical, you know. And I'm going to bring this knife out. I understand that they're not in the same category, but just utility-wise, check this out. This is a small Insingo Sebenza with about the same blade shape, edge shape, not blade shape, edge shape as the Stitch. And you can see almost has the same cutting edge. Missing by maybe, I don't know. You can see it's really close. Not even 1/4 of an inch there. And look how much more efficiently the SNG, Sebenza, not SNG, the Sebenza does that. You know, smaller, a lot thinner in your pocket, a lot more practical. But again, I already have this knife, so something like this is fun to spice things up. It's just a fun knife. It's hard to recommend. And I keep saying that over and over again because I don't want to say how much I really do like owning this knife, and then somebody gets it and like, well, that knife's not practical at all. I think that's one of the reasons I really do like it so much, is because it's kind of like a piece that satisfies like the knife hobby. Like, this is more art, more like usable sculpture, in my opinion. I know it's a hard use cutting tool. It has the M390. It is incredibly well machined. The pivot is very thick. It has a full, pretty much a full length back spacer here. 3/4 length back spacer. This knife is really tied together. We're going to get into that, into the knife spelunking. You have 2 thick slabs of aluminum. This is a extremely tough knife. The plunge lock, yeah, maybe I'd like to see more engagement there, but it's incredibly strong. There's no side to side here. It is a really well built knife. But again, very thick, hard use oriented knife. Some people are going to think it's just stupid how the overall profile is. Some people don't like the Para 2 with the long handle and the little blade. You know, some people don't like the sharpening notch here. I could do with it or without it. I don't really have a say, so that's almost on a knife per knife basis. If I like a sharpening notch, I'll do another video on that. If I had my choice, I usually don't like sharpening notches. We'll do a whole nother video on that. I would much rather have them like this. They do get a little bit funky up near the choil, but there's no snagging here. Sometimes on an SNG, again, I digress, but sometimes you can snag stuff here that you're trying to cut. There's a reason the SNG has it. It's a blade stop when it's closed. I think that they could redesign that fairly easy, but that's for a whole nother video. So given a choice, I'd rather have no choil up here. But these knives are a lot thinner blade stock than the Stitch here, and you can see why they did that on the Stitch. When you bring this blade this thick and then roll the plunge down into that, you really can't get a sharp point on the knife until about right here. So they put that little sharpening notch on there. And that's why a lot of sharpening notches are used. It's practical. I understand it. I'm okay with it. It's not that big. I've never really had too many snagging issues there. It still has a sharp point for as thick as the blade is. They bring this little harpoon shape with the swedge here, and they really do get that point down. It's very practical. It pierces very well. I don't know anything about self-defense knife design, but I gotta imagine that this would be a decent option because of the Wharncliffe style blade. Really focuses the pressure here as far as penetration, as far as locking into your hand, as far as sliding up the blade. Its thing is very locked into your hand. So I don't know if it's a self-defense blade or not, but it's probably a pretty decent option. Anyways, on with the action of the knife. This thing kicks like a mule. When you get this thick of blade stock swinging out under a heavy spring load, it really kicks, and I like it. That's one of the biggest fun factors for a knife that I have. I didn't word that right, but it's a fun knife. It really is. I probably look like a psychopath when I'm going to get the mail or something. I've been walking around with this knife in my pocket. I will pop it open, and as you're getting the mail, sometimes as we're watching a movie, I'll pop it a few times, and everybody in the house like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I got the same problem with my out the front. Such a fun knife. So yeah, it's a fun knife. I definitely would not classify it as a novelty knife. Just know it's really thick in your pocket. It's not hard to carry if you're used to carrying tactical knives. But would I recommend it for your one and only? No. So that's it. That is the Microtech Stitch. I really like it. It has a smaller cutting edge, long handle, great materials, incredibly well machined. Just make sure if you purchase this knife that you have your EDC bases covered. Make sure that you really do love the design of this knife. Make sure that you're okay with buying from Microtech. Again, do your research on that. Not going to get into that. So there you go. That's the Microtech Stitch. I'm going to tear this thing down. We're going to go deep down inside and look at the internals. I think that will be a pretty beneficial video in addition to this video if you're looking to purchase this knife. So that's it, guys. I appreciate you hanging out. Hopefully you have a good day. We'll see you on the next one.